Board, good afternoon. We'll get started here in just a second. We are tying in a couple people who couldn't be here physically, so we are conferencing them in.
Hey Parker, can you hear me? Okay, Parker, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Tom, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, we're gonna start.
Board, we have on the phone Tom Pittman from Barnes & Thornburg. He is our attorney for TIF matters. And Joe Jenner may call in, but he is in transit. And then we also have Parker Criswell on the phone, who is with our financial advisor, READI Financial.
Good afternoon, all.
All right, we're ready to get started, I think.
Yeah.
All right, we'll call to order the October 14th meeting of the Madison Redevelopment Commission. First order of business is the approval of minutes from the September 7th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those? Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Next order of business, claims approvals. There were a few that have been circulated, I think, to the group. Can I get a motion to approve the claims?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Great. Old business. Mr. Mayor, monthly financial review.
Yeah, I'll just mention that on page 6 of the financial review, with regard to the North Madison allocation area, our monthly cash balance is showing 2 large capital outlays for November and December, and that ties directly to kind of what our pro forma capital outlays would be on page 7. A lot of that has to do with Stellar and other things that are fluid with regard to the date in which we actually expend that money. I just wanted to assure the Redevelopment Commission that we would not go into any negative territory, and we're still evaluating quite a few of those Stellar projects and other proposed capital outlays. And then the goal is, as we approach year end, and we have some definitive response on the READI grant monies that we've applied for, then we can really finish up our capital plan for 2022 and 2023. So what I'll do is I'll work with Parker to refine this and then get you a new sheet out that does not reflect those capital outlays. Because for example, the Clifty Drive sidewalks, for example, that project's not starting till next year. Crystal Beach, we're having a groundbreaking on it, but that money's not going to be needed until next year. We'd already sent the Ohio Theater payment in, and then there's some other larger, really ambitious things that we have talked about that's part of our redevelopment plan, but from a timing perspective, they're not going to happen in the 4th quarter of this year. So we'll refine this and move them into the proper year. Okay. Parker, anything to add on that?
No, Mayor, you hit the nail on the head with that one.
Okay.
And then maybe in the future, Parker, if you can identify these as we're looking at reviewing the monthly cash outlay, if we can note it or something, just so we can better answer our own questions maybe on where it is in the plan.
I think that's a really good point, which is where we have a separate page already for like RDC contracts and debt overview, a separate tab for capital outlays. As we progress through the year, would really make that easy to identify.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Any other questions for Parker? Great, thank you. The READI grant update.
If possible, I'd like to defer that to just updates at the end of the meeting, so we can move on with new business.
Okay.
Okay.
So, first order of new business, proposed Madison Industrial Park subdivision.
Yes. Board, attached to the package is a proposed subdivision plan. We had started working on this several months ago, and now it's really starting to take shape. There's approximately 12 acres of land the Redevelopment Commission owns that is on Shun Park, that's part of the Madison Industrial Park. This is actually on the west side of Shun Pike. We frequently get inquiries about smaller parcels, and our proposal here is to subdivide those remaining 12 acres into 4 parcels ranging between 2 and 4 acres. And that would be consistent with the action the board took a couple years ago in subdividing 2 acres out for the new Madison Brewing Company. So what we would like to do today is, first you have a proposed survey that shows how the tracks are delineated. We'd like the board to move to approve the subdivision of that 12 acres as proposed here. Then we'll take the next steps, which is to go to the Plan Commission to actually affect the subdivision, record the revised plat, and then we can start offering those parcels for sale individually, and really create some parameters under which what type of businesses we'd like there. But we do get inquiries quite a bit for smaller tracts outside of the industrial park.
Any questions on this? So no questions, then can I get a proposal, proposal to approve the recommended subdivision?
I make a motion that we approve the suggested new plots or changes to that property for smaller. I think that it's a good idea because it's easier to have it finished, probably
Yeah.
easier to market it that way.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Second. Okay.
All in favor? So moved.
Thank you, board. Moving on, we have a guest here today. Sorry, was there a comment? Okay. We have a guest here today, Mike Flint, who is with Ice Miller, and he is representing Clifty Commercial Properties, also known as Super ATV. We have 2 matters on the agenda that deal with Super ATV. The first is Clifty Commercial Properties LLC's Economic Development Agreement compliance. In your material packet for today is a copy of the development agreement that was executed by the Redevelopment Commission on May 3rd of 2019. This development services agreement essentially set forward incentives of $2.6 million with a forgivability of reimbursement commitment in section 5.02 that had certain triggers to it. I'm collecting information from the developer now with regards to compliance. It's mostly based upon the dollar amount of investment and the amount of jobs that are created. But of the $2.6 million, approximately $1.9 million, which is the first 2 tranches to be forgiven, does appear to have been satisfied with regards to their investment. This is for the Armor project in particular. Mike, what I was going to mention to you is that we presented them the information. We're going to ask you for a representation letter, and then the board will take it under advisement now, and then we'll come back to our November meeting. We'll take action on the actual affirmment that the forgivability provisions have been, satisfied. Is that okay with you? You want to come up to the podium? You can turn that light on there.
Yeah, according to the agreement there was, in addition to that, there was supposed to be $5 million of capital investments been done, provided with backup through the IBC, because the criteria in there was met was $5 million
Yep.
in there. In that is there was a little over 8.3 in what they call qualified basis from the IEDC, and they determine qualified basis is basically very hard cost equipment, but only equipment that's fixed, okay, not any other.
It's for the basis of the dyno credits predominantly, right?
Yeah, that's all they care about. They didn't look at overall, but we've exceeded that as of February 22nd of 2021. they always run in the rear. Problem is their analysis runs in the rear. Oh, thank you, sorry. Hit it. And, so, at that time, we were like 8.3 million in qualified basis. That doesn't include your, you know, any other, equipment, also doesn't include things like acquisition cost, utility cost, or site work, or, architects, engineers, anything in that. We're actually close to 13 million what's been spent in the building. So that there, on the one, that totally meets
Yeah.
That number. And, in fact, we right now are going to finish it up, as we speak, and again, they run in the rears. So, we'll meet that, more than exceed,
Yeah.
the commitment of 5 million. The others was the other, amount was the job numbers, and, what I call this project has created. And so the requirement was they had to be over $18.50 per hourly wage without not including benefits. And what I did provide was actual documentation that IEDC's reports. And, but I would, you know, what you have to do for what they call edge credits. Edge credits are, with the state is on based upon payroll and your number of full-time FTE, full-time equivalent jobs, there. And so we were, you know, I didn't average them all the years together, but I'm just telling you they were always above, anywhere between $22 to $23 an hour, depending upon the time frame. It's kind of you might have an engineer come in, but then you also might have somebody in logistics. So, but the average was about $22 to $23 an hour. And then also there was over 79 jobs as of the end of last year. That didn't include this year. So, again, those things we do on the rears. It's a rear reporting. So the 50 jobs was more than exceeded. So those two requirements, i.e. have, based upon your developer's agreement, to meet the terms of it.
What I'd recommend doing is compiling information, following up with you, and then getting that to the board so they can review it, and we'll take action on that at the next meeting.
Okay.
And I just want to mention too is that the measurement interval for the jobs, because this agreement is broken down between capital investment and job creation. The measurement interval for the jobs is the 4th anniversary after the acquisition of the property, whereas the capital investment was essentially, it had to be made prior to 4 years of the acquisition of the property. And that's clearly been met. We'll get you the information, and then we'll follow the cycling agreement for the forgiveness of the reimbursement commitment for the final $700,000 tranche on the 4th anniversary. Any questions on that, or anything from Mike before we move into the declaratory resolution?
Just a technical question, not really from Mike, but from the city. So where does this move off of the city's balance sheet? Is that, because right now it's sitting as a loan?
So we really don't even have this on the balance sheet now. So because these were the portions of the bonds that were essentially paid on an accelerated basis. So when this bond issue was done, there were 2 projects in it. One was Armor, one was Cotton Mill.
Right, okay.
And the Redevelopment Commission took the cash that was in the Redevelopment Commission's account at the time and repaid the bonds. So there isn't any debt that the city or the Redevelopment Commission has outstanding related to Armor. This now is just the forgiveness of the developer's reimbursement commitment under the development agreement.
Okay.
The only thing that's outstanding is the Cotton Mill bonds.
Got it.
Yep.
Any questions? Mr. Flynn? No?
If
Yeah.
I may, and that was, I think, treated also, that bond was also treated as a grant. And that may be why it's a little bit different on that.
Got it.
For that 2.6, that was a grant. That was issued as a grant. Yes, we just trying to clean this up, and we'll present a formal, representation letter with, you know, again, the backup accordingly. I think all terms have been met.
I do too.
You agree with that? Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mike, you want to, is it now, Mr. Chairman, okay if we move into the declaratory resolution amending the North Madison and Northwest Madison allocation areas? Before Mike speaks, I'll just mention that there are 2 properties involved here. One is on Michigan Road, which is in the North Madison allocation area. And then when Armour was acquired and created, there was a new allocation area that was formed through that process called the Northwest Madison allocation area. So these are the 2 areas that we're talking about, and what this declaratory resolution will do, will essentially take them out of that allocation area and create a new one that is specific to a single taxpayer. Maybe I'll turn that over then to Mike. We also have Tom Pittman on the phone, who can also walk us through any of the legal questions you might have about the declaratory resolution.
Sure.
Mike?
Mike,
I'll turn it over to you, talk about the project, and then maybe
Okay.
we'll ask Tom to give an overview on the resolution.
You know, if he wants to.
sure.
Okay. Hi, Tom.
Hi there.
Hey. Yes, the project is twofold. Basically, on the south side of the existing Super ATV TV building, there'll be an additional 120,000 square foot building that'll be basically right butting up against the other building. There'll be, and so with that, they will then also, as part of that project, is totally redo the logistics side of the building to allow for, they've been able to work things out with FedEx, UPS, and others to have direct trucking to various points to meet their priorities of being able to deliver, you know, majority of places in continental US in 2 days or so. And then there'll be some that go directly to the West Coast, and one directly go to Florida. So they'll be having these bays. That part there is a little over $5 million expansion within the building itself for the logistics, you know, piece mix. Also in this 120,000 square foot, again, will be used for combination of fabrication and manufacturing. Is in this 120,000 square feet building is now they're due to the nature of steel costs and construction and the trend is an additional another 100,000 square foot building that would be on the other side of the 120,000 square foot building. But they will have to be done in series. One will have to get done to the other. With them, go ahead.
I'll show what that was, go ahead, Mike.
Okay. In addition to this, the other aspect of it is at the Armour building, we'll be developing a innovation center, clean rooms, things like that for both, basically for R&D purposes, to develop new product lines, also to do quality control analysis, and also just overall testing. But it'll also be able to bring in and as other companies want to partner and et cetera to try their products out. It'll be an innovation center at the Armour facility. That's also another piece of this is that you know, there's a lot of activity going on through possible other acquisitions, and that can say that very aggressive, and to make several of them, Madison will become their headquarters as part of the transactions. So it'll also bring, all their equipment will come here, and also all their control of their patents, licenses, and et cetera, trademarks. So those due diligence will be done, but part of that will be done there, again, the Innovation Center. And so the goal was to try to start construction on the 120,000 square foot this late fall, at least earthwork, but steel is running close to about 50-week lead time. Maybe it might shorten to 30, don't know. So that's the other aspect of it. Force Construction will be the one building it out of Columbus. They're doing a design build turnkey. So all of these projects that I discussed, with including all the various equipment, et cetera, will be around a little over $70 million. And you know, the job numbers can run. There's a lot of ifs because of acquisitions, not for sure, but the job numbers can range anywhere between 250 to 370 jobs is our analysis over the next 5 years. The construction project will take, our hope is for the construction job on the 120 to be completed, we'd like to see it at the end of next year, but I'd say it's gonna be the first quarter of the following year to be realistic, you know. So thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I'll just make a couple of comments here, which is we recently went through some pretty significant economic development planning about the workforce. And we met with all of our industry about their expansion plans and their workforce needs. We incorporated that into a plan for housing, parks upgrades, infrastructure. And we can all, say that Super ADV has been a fast-growing company, and we're excited to see them do a couple of things here. One is continue to invest, but invest seriously in Madison. So this declaratory resolution is really the first step in the process for the bonding that would be required to provide some level of development assistance to them. Tom, I might ask you if you want to touch on the declaratory resolution and maybe what it does.
Yes, sir. Basically, let's suppose hypothetically there were no TIF districts in the city of Madison, and what would happen here is you'd come in, you'd set up a TIF district, it would generate TIF, and you could pledge all or a portion of the TIF toward an incentive. That is being done here. The probably slightly unusual element is that the parcels in focus here are already in existing TIF districts. The normal process then, and what's being followed here, is especially if there are obligations outstanding that are payable from the existing TIF districts, which is true, then what is done and what has been done here is to analyze what would happen if you would remove particular parcels from existing TIF districts and put them in a brand new one. Would the debt holders be negatively impacted by doing that? You can envision situations where it would reduce the security for bondholders. Here, a calculation, the document reflects that a calculation has been made that debt holders from the outstanding TIF districts, even with the carve out of the specified parcels, still keeps existing debt holders well protected. And in that case, it's customary then to be comfortable going ahead and plucking those parcels out and creating a brand new area. So that's what's being done here. So you're seeing a lot of references in the resolution to the existing areas. And so there are recitations on that. There's a discussion of the debt payable from those existing TIF districts. There's a confirmation that removing these parcels wouldn't be harmful to holders of debt payable from those TIF districts. And with those sorts of findings, then the resolution goes through normal recitation to set up a separate new TIF district with a new base date, and to designate this the company as what's called a designated taxpayer, which you have to do in order to capture depreciable personal property TIF, along with the standard real property TIF. So I didn't draft the ordinance, but I reviewed it carefully, and it looked to be in perfect order to me.
So Tom, this is John Grow. Just a question, we don't have any bondholders on this property now, correct?
Well, no, there are some bondholders that are, let's see, we have the Riverton bond issue that's payable from some of the parcels involved. And we've got, let's see, a North Madison tip that has some bonds outstanding. And so there are debt holders associated with these parcels. But if you run the numbers on how well protected those bondholders are, if you carve these parcels out, you find that they're still well taken care of in terms of the projected revenues from the parcels less the plucked out parcels. So you've kept them safe, you've looked out for them, and that puts you in a position then to call those parcels out. But there are debt issues outstanding payable from those.
Okay, thank you, that clears up that for me. Then the second question is on, you said that we'll carve out and make the company will be part of this district. What if it gets sold? Is there anything affecting that?
Yeah, if it gets sold, I mean, typically it's property that's owned by this company. And so, I mean, the company itself is the designated taxpayer, so I've never had that situation come up.
But what you would do, John, is to protect the city and the TIF district, you would have certain types of provisions in your development agreement with regards to clawbacks if other events happen. You know, our motivation here is to get the capital investment and the job creation, and as long as that's happening, then there wouldn't be any issue. So if anything that impacted that, you could have clawback provisions like we have in the existing agreement that require reimbursement obligations if certain conditions aren't met and continue to be met, generally over a 5-year period. Then you could call on the developer to repay money.
But after those 5 years, if the company gets sold, would it change?
You are buying, the company's buying the bond, isn't it?
That's correct, yeah, these will be privately held by the company themselves. So-
Mayor, you're even better
Yeah.
protected than what you just described, because the new bondholder, which is the developer here, will agree that if for any reason, we will require them to agree that if for any reason the TIF is short, in terms of being able to repay this new bond, that won't constitute a default. I typically recommend also that, I mean, they would have to sign the sophisticated investor letter. And thirdly, I typically ask for them to say in writing that they will not bring an action against the city except unless the city has not applied available TIF in accordance with the commitment. But the commitment is limited. So if there's insufficient TIF for any reason, it's the company that bears the loss with no liability for the city.
Yeah, so we'll basically, it's a machine, you know, that will hold their own bonds. So if they don't make the payments, you know, they have to come up with whatever the gap measure is over that time period. So they're at 100% at risk. There's no issuance costs. There's no issuance issues related here to the city. The city will just, they will issue it and pass it through, but there's no risk.
Okay.
Yeah, and what they're outlining, there are several ways in which we can protect the TIF district in the event that the actual revenue isn't created.
Yeah, now let me chime in if I may. I mean, Mike, the timetable is set up for a taxable bond issue. I thought I heard you say that the bond issue would be tax-free, but that's.
No, it's taxable, if I'm
Okay,
mistaken, it's taxable, it's not tax exempt, it's taxable.
Also, I mean, there's also, I think, some open issue here yet to be resolved.
Yeah. Which
What percentage of the TIF stream would be pledged to this bond? And that's something that I know that Parker and the
Yeah.
mayor still need to discuss. So it'll be, likely some percentage of the TIF so that the city
Yeah.
gets some benefit from the TIF stream, separately.
Yeah, I think, and part of this is we work through this resolution just so we can start the process
Right.
and have these discussions accordingly.
Yeah.
And rather, is it, do you place the bond, does the developer place the bond with an institution, per se, his own bank, or does he hold it direct? There's a lot of things to be played, but now we can start the process and then
Right.
dig into it, the different models and different options.
Agreed.
But the
Agreed.
but the concept is the same, procedurally, let me put that way. Thanks, Tom.
Sure, thank you.
Great. Any other questions?
I would just ask, are there any cons that we want to advertise? We've heard about a number of pros here. Are there any potential detriments to the redevelopment commission by making this move?
I can't think of any because this is what we're doing today is creating a new taxing district that's specific to a certain taxpayer who is committing to invest approximately $30 million and create well over 100 new jobs at a rate that pays higher than the average county rate. It is a major part, as is the expansion plans for our other industry in the community that feeds into our population growth and our rising property values and improving our economy. So I don't see any downside. What we've got to figure out is, again, what's the financial structure? And that's what we'll work out with the projections and then come back to you separately than the declaratory resolution that has to go through planning commission and council process. And then just like you did with Cotton Mill and Armour, we'll work out a development agreement that talks about the increment tax revenue that we will be sharing. That's what we're talking about here, is creating increment. That's the whole purpose of the TIF district, is to grow property tax values and reinvest it in our TIF district so that we can create more revenue and do more investment. So I can't think of a downside, frankly, particularly if we do what Tom was mentioning, which is you have clawbacks and other provisions that protect us on the downside as it relates to this specific project. Gary, hope I answered your question. Thank you.
If I may on that, the only little thing is that, so the developers, if he's holding bond, et cetera, is taking the risk, his own risk of not making those, let's say those tax payments, okay? What we have here in developing is because there's, will be more of a formula basis, and as this, as the project could speed up or expand and accordingly. And so it's, so any shortfalls, that's the developer risk. That's why they call these kind of developer models. It's a developer risk.
Great.
So that's the only thing is if you don't do the expansion that you're planning on,
Great.
and you issue them for this over here,
Mm-hmm.
that's really the con.
Got it, thanks.
So,
And I would note, it isn't unusual to receive a request from a developer that additional security be placed on the bond, and that has not been requested here. So if and to the extent they do what they're intending to do, it should generate the increment they expect. But if for any reason the TIF is insufficient from their project, they understand that the city doesn't owe them anything.
That's right. We do have an agreement.
no, I think it's very exciting. It's great that the company's making the investment in Madison, it's chosen Madison to continue to expand, so it's very exciting. So with that, can we get a proposal to Mayor, you can read.
What is this resolution number? Does our secretary have a resolution number? Okay, we'll fill that in. Mr. President, what we would need is a motion to approve a resolution amending the declaratory resolution of the Madison Redevelopment Commission, removing these parcels as titled in this document, basically. Okay, and I'll get the resolution number and fill it in.
We'll fill it back in, all right.
Okay.
I think you only had one or two so far this year.
Yeah.
Two or three.
And if I could add, this resolution doesn't become final until after a public hearing. And it also doesn't bind the city in any way, in terms of, you know, pinning down the deal. It really is just a way to get the capturing of the TIF in place.
So we'll get the resolution number, but it's an amended declaratory resolution of the Madison Redevelopment Commission removing parcels from the North Madison Economic Development Area Allocation Area and the City of Madison Northwest Allocation Area to create the Super ATV Allocation Area within the North Madison Economic Development Area and amending Economic Development Plan. So can I get a resolution or motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution.
Second?
All in favor?
And we want to note, Dr. Studebaker's
I'm
abstaining.
abstaining.
Okay,
So moved.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you. No, I'll work on it.
Tom, thank you very much. You're all welcome to stay on the call and listen to me ramble on about all the great things going on in town.
Mr. Board, Mayor and the
Yes.
board, I've got a negotiation meeting I have got to get to. So.
Dr. Studebaker, thank you for coming.
Yeah, I've got to run. Thank you all.
Fine, thank you.
I need to run through it. I'll be right behind you.
We're done? Okay. All right, that's all good. It's all good news. Let me give you some city matter updates real quick.
Yeah.
City matter updates. Board, we are still working through local planning for the receipt of approximately $2.4 million of American Rescue Plan Act monies. We received that in 2 tranches. City Council approved a local plan. A lot of it's going to be dedicated to stormwater infrastructure because of the floods that we've experienced. But I'll fill you in more on that. But we have we're working on really 2 major water-related projects. One's for stormwater and one is drinking water. So we are in the process of working through all of the rate analysis for the drinking water, and we are working with the Army Corps of Engineers for the stormwater risk management planning, particularly to mitigate the impact from future floods in the North Walnut Street area where we've experienced two flash floods in the last 6 years. We continue to recruit for a new executive director for the economic development. We have our job posting out on several professional economic development related platforms. We'll keep you posted as those resumes come in, and then if we decide there's somebody who can interview, we'll pull you in on that. The downtown parking study that the Redevelopment Commission is funding is underway. They'll be in town actually this week through Saturday. I think tomorrow and Saturday they're actually doing their drone review of the district that we outlined for the parking study, and plan is to have that finished by the end of November to report back to the board. And like with the sidewalk asset management plan, that's going to provide some really useful information for us from a policy perspective, and also where we need to invest and how much we should invest in parking. But if you ever come downtown on a weekday and a weekend, there's parking constraints, really all over town. We're trying to figure out how best to manage it and whether or not we need to invest in either other surface lots or parking garage. And then lastly, I'll just mention on the grocery store front, we have, we're in the process of working with our developer consultant. We've identified probably another half a dozen potential prospects, and we are compiling new census data and a new marketing package, essentially to give to potential grocery store operators. That still is our #1 downtown development priority, but it's a really key ingredient with our Destination Madison development plan that was part of the Southern Indiana RDA's application to IEDC for the READI grants. So out of that plan, we've applied for approximately $6 million in grant funding, which would facilitate approximately $85 to $100 million of new investment downtown. That will also be a complement to our development plans on the Hilltop too. As I mentioned, our workforce-related development plans on the Hilltop. But we're working on a number of fronts and excited about the prospects of receiving several millions of dollars of grant funds from READI that will then be levered in with private investment and local match to facilitate a substantial amount of development over the next 3 years. Lastly, I'll mention we have a groundbreaking for the start of the restoration for Crystal Beach on Monday at 1 o'clock, I believe it is. Took us a while to work through the final elements of a construction contract with Pool Group, which we awarded the contract to. And then we also had to do a lot of site preparation ourselves to get ready for them to mobilize, but they're mobilizing on Monday, and so we're going to do a brief groundbreaking. That was a primary project that Redevelopment Commission is funding, in addition to a $2 million grant we received from Oprah. So we're happy to see that underway. And then in a stellar meeting yesterday, Carrie was there. We gave an update on construction progress with the Ohio Theater. It's gone really well. We funded $250,000 for stabilization. That work is completed, and there's just a tremendous amount of development activity going on all across the community, whether it be PACE or city or private investment, industry expansion, innovation, housing, quality of life, property acquisitions by the city and the Redevelopment Commission. So we have a good plan, and as I mentioned before, as we get closer to know what monies we're really going to get from READI, that will help us hone in on our development strategies for the next 3 years, because that will provide state match for those projects. So, a lot going on, and happy to answer any questions. Next meeting will be November the 2nd. In between now and then, we will need to have a special meeting to stay on track with the resolution we passed today relative to the Super ATV allocation area and expansion project.
Great. Okay. Nice update, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Great. As the mayor said, the next meeting November 2nd. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
I'm gonna get you guys to sign this.
Yes, you're gonna sign it for me. And I'll run over there.
I'll get the
Do you want me to print out a fresh copy?